we're going to cover the next 6 questions that I highlighted the other week. So just to recap your memory, I went out to AI and asked it to search all platforms for the top 20 questions from people who have questions about getting planning permission and doing development generally. Okay, we did the first 6 last week, and we're going to do 7 to 12 today because they put them into categories. These fall into planning risk, planning permission and risk. So a few more details on there. They've gone out to all Facebook forums, homebuilding.co.uk, and various websites and various forums. And yeah, I would suggest that these are pretty pretty sound questions, really. Just, what we get all the time, certainly people, I get asked for these type of questions all the time. So without further ado, let's get into the weeds and see what these questions are. So the first question is number 7. How likely am I to get planning permission on this plot? Well, it doesn't say which plot, so this is generic, so I assume it means on a plot. And obviously with that question, a very broad pan question, it depends. It depends on where it is. It's a planning designation and some of this stuff that's much of the stuff we covered in the earlier video. So it depends. Too general question really, but I do appreciate it's come from AI. So yes, too much of a general question. We need to understand where it is, postcode specific, is it in the built-up area, etc. Number 8, what are planners actually looking for when deciding an application? Well, this is really good one actually, because people overthink this, and what they have a very set criteria, although it may not seem like this, but it's massively open to interpretation by different councils. Different councils across the country have very different priorities within the planning framework. But ultimately, we're only really looking for 2 things. The first thing is we're looking for an application that has followed the guidance and the information that is given within their borough, within their area. So if we're specifically looking for somebody who's taken time to read and understand what exactly they want within that particular area. And within that, they could have hobby horses such as transport, parking, etc. But within the planning framework, within the planning guidance that's beyond the website, they will have a very specific criteria of what they want to follow. And the second part answer to that question is they want amenity. Well, they want amenity. And what does amenity mean? It means that someone can get quiet enjoyment, in inverted commas, is a technical term, of that plot or of that home at a later date and ongoing. So that means road noise, it means access issues, it means parking, it means a full myriad of things that people will look at to say, great, if I live in that house, I will get quiet enjoyment, is the phrase. So you need to check that it follows the guidance, and also then falls in with amenity. Is it overmassed? Is there too many units on there? There's a full myriad of things, but they want a nice, appropriate development for the plot, and that is often given to you via pre-application advice. So the short answer to that question is, it is a very specific criteria, is specific to the council, and please get pre-application advice from them, because you will very quickly find out what their particular interest and desires are from that application. Number 9, can I get planning permission on land with no previous consent? Absolutely, yes, depending on where it is, obviously. If it's in the middle of the green belt, there may be certain areas that you just simply can't. But as a rule, just because a piece of land has had no previous consent and it concurs with that it's in the correct area, correct planning designation, etc., then absolutely you can get a consent on a piece of land, that's that's not previously had a consent, and I've done that many times. So that's number 9. Number 10, what's the difference between outline and the full planning permission? Well, again, very generic question, but in a nutshell, outline planning permission is a agreement that the property and that the plot can be developed. Okay, so what does that mean? Well, there's a key phrase in this, guys, and this means when you get pre-application advice, you need to be looking on the advice for a term called sustainable development. So that if someone puts on there that it is a sustainable development, it means it can be built on, providing other restrictions, etc., are conformed to. So a general outline permission is, yes, you can build on there, and something like that may be okay in inverted commas. So that is almost a permission to develop a, yes, in theory, we will allow planning permission on there, notwithstanding the other criteria that we have. And a full planning permission is where you put detailed drawings in of exactly what you want, and the planning officer will take a view as to whether or not that is a correct interpretation of what the legislation and what the local authorities' needs are. So then they will pick up on boundary treatments, fencing, etc., roof design, all of the good stuff that goes into a planning application. So that's the difference in a nutshell. Outline permission is yes, you can build on it. Full planning permission is yes, you can build on it, and you can build that on it, whatever you've submitted. How long does planning permission really take? Well, this is a very loaded question, because officially, depending on the type of site and the size of development, there are very specific guidelines of 8 and 12 weeks. Guided by the local authority. In reality, these are never met, very, very occasionally, but as a rule, they're very rarely met. This is a resourcing issue within many planning departments. It's not a secret, that most planning departments are under-resourced, and they don't simply have the capacity to deal with these things, to deal with the amount of applications that they get. So yeah, this is and I've done an application which should have taken 8 weeks, has taken 18 months, probably would be the longest. And then I've had applications that should take, 6 weeks, that take 8 weeks. So yeah, all ends of a spectrum there, guys, really. But it depends on how well resourced your local authority is, and how amenable they are to development within the area. Certain planning authorities are just completely not in a frame of mind at all to develop, for political reasons usually. So trying to understand, what the makeup of your local council is can often answer that. But officially, and number 12 is, what are the most common reasons that self-build plots get refused? And this almost goes back to the previous question. They're almost certainly refused due to a lack of observance of the guidance and what the council are looking for within a self-build plot in that area. That information is readily available, typically on the website, and it's crucial that you follow that information and follow that guidance. But the most common reasons are access. So people getting in and out, passing other buildings. Overlooking is a very common one. So 12, 14 meters is usually the distances between there. They're not set in stone, but they are a good guide. And the final one is usually overmassing. The one that I see most is overmassing. So people trying to put 6 houses on a plot that should only really support 4. People do this with good reason, but unfortunately, the overmassing often affects the amenity of the plot and how people would have their quiet enjoyment of the plot and of the building disrupted in years to come. And there's a real understandable desire to put as much property on there as you can. It fits with narratives, we need housing, etc. But sadly, that isn't the best way to go. You must observe the key criteria that the council put down and go through it methodically. Okay, guys, so that's questions 6 till 12 covered off today, and we'll do another one further in the week. So I look forward to seeing you then. See you later.